in case we do have some folks that are new or folks that haven't joined us in a while, this is our Friday edition of Military Trailblazer Office Hours. And what we do here, we try to answer any questions you have on trailhead, super badges, issues at work, general technical questions, whatever it is. All that I ask that you do is if you have a question, just raise your hand using the raise hand thing down there in the toolbar. So with that, maybe we will open it up to questions. Does anybody have any topics or issues that they would like to go through for today? I have a feeling like today's going to be a slow Friday. Oh, I see a hand there. Christina, what do you got there?
So you know me, I'm the super badge questioner. I started working on the app customization specialist super badge, and I'm stuck on step 4. And I know we don't have access to Trailblazer, but I'm really just looking for is a nudge in the right direction, because I've been trying. It's the part about the approval process. I do have the direction.
Yeah, if you can show what it is that you were stuck under the step. Let me ask you a question. Just go back to your statement that we don't have access to Trailblazer. Can you tell me about that?
It's archived in, so I still have it up. So just a second, I can show you.
Is this based on the maintenance that they were doing today, like switching over to the Trailblazer identity or whatever?
Yeah, they're changing the layout of Trailblazer Me, I think. Oh. So it's this step right here where you have to do a quick self sign up.
Okay, so sign up for shift directly from a volunteer shift record. Your solution was an action with the label sign me up. Okay, there should be no fields on the pop-up, instead the action automatically sets. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Now, can you show us what you did?
I don't know if I can show it. That's the part I don't know if I can pull up, because I don't have Trailblazer right now.
Okay.
But what I did was I tried to start an approval process that would be based on the field status being the field status of the let me see if
yeah, I was going to say, if we take one step back, that step that you were looking at right there, that was just based on creating an action, right? When you try to validate that step, is it throwing an error?
Yeah, and the error is telling me that I don't have an approval process called confirm. Let me see if I can pull that up. Maybe that's still saved in here. Usually those go dead though. Let me see. Sorry, I have a lot of tabs open.
Nah, no worries.
It's the story of my life. I always have too much open. Let's see.
When console view came out in Salesforce, I thought it was great because it would reduce the number of browser tabs that I had, because I had like 40 Salesforce tabs open, and then console view came out, and all that did was make 35 of my tabs now be sub tabs instead of main tabs. Yeah. So it didn't really help my issue.
Yeah, I don't think it's still up because of the being down.
Okay.
But it said I needed an approval process, which didn't make sense to me, because when I first started it, I was trying to just do an action button with and that I was going to attach that button to a flow, but the error told me that there was supposed to be an approval process. So that's why I was confused.
Now, in a previous step, did you have to go through doing approval processes on this?
No.
Okay. The environment where you're doing this, where you're trying to validate this, is it the same environment that you might have been working on other trailhead stuff?
No. I did a fresh playground for each super badge. I don't piggyback them.
Okay. So, now, before I admit defeat and just say that once you have access that we can log in and take a look, that we'll do this. Do me a favor, just scroll up a little bit right here. So we have the quick self sign up is what you're working on. But if you just slowly go up here, so create another user for testing. Okay, keep going. You have automate shift. Okay, so there's the approval process right there. So that step right there talks about the approval process. Did you go through all that piece?
Yeah, I got that part. Let me go down here. Let me see the error's not up.
Okay, go ahead and click check challenge. Just see if it'll throw the error up there. And as many people have, okay, so maybe you don't even have access to
Yeah, it said that everything, trailhead, help, everything was going to be down today and tomorrow. Okay. So maybe what I need is to really understand clearly where and so I don't want to violate the rules about super
Yeah.
badges, and I'm willing to troubleshoot and do it, but sometimes like this particular piece just seems so different. I went to the modules and the help article, and nothing really synced up with, it's not going to be the exact same as this request. So what is the correct amount of help that you can ask for, I guess?
Yeah, I have no idea. And that's
Oh,
why with super badges, we try to tread lightly, right? So
yeah,
point you in the right direction, give you general tips, hints, that kind of thing.
yeah.
But with what a lot of people have suggested in the past when people are having issues with super badges is you take whatever the error message is and you Google it, and you'll probably find about 400 things on the Trailblazer community describing that exact issue and that exact super badge and how to fix it, right? So yeah, so I was
So
going to say
maybe
that would
Google the error message rather than the step. I
exactly,
was
yeah.
Googling all over for like the super badge, number 4, step number 4, or whatever. But if I just do the whole error message, maybe that will come up with
Yeah, I
more
was going to say the
helpful.
super badge name, the step name, and then the error message you're getting, and that should get you
Okay.
close to if somebody had that same issue. Now, before you do that, I would say, just in the interest of like trying to figure it out, I might suggest that you go through not that one that you were looking at with the quick action, but I would go through that step previous one, because it looks like the issue is probably on the validation or the approval process step, not the
Okay.
thing that's coming after it.
Okay.
And typical things to look for, make sure you have the right naming conventions. You named it the same thing as what they were asking you to name
Okay.
it. Make sure it's active.
Okay.
Yeah, so things like that. Kind of go through that step all the way again, and then see if that helps. If it
Okay.
doesn't, maybe once you can get in the environment, we can see what's going on there.
Okay.
Pick it up again.
Yeah, it's hard when you can't pull it up, and I
Yeah.
knew that was a risk. But anyway, thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Okay. Cool. Well, let's open it back up. Anybody else have any questions or topics that they would like to go through? Again, I feel like it's one of those like summer Fridays that nobody has things they want to go through. No topics, no questions, no issues from anybody? I do see one hand, Lindsay. Yep.
Hey, everybody.
Hey.
Not sure if anybody has experience with these, but I've got an Experience Cloud site with a guest user that I need to allow them to upload a file and then relate it to a record. It's not the case. So it's a custom object that I'm trying to relate this file to.
Yeah.
And it runs through a screen flow on the Experience Cloud.
Yeah.
So a couple weeks ago when I presented the flows that the form flows, I'm having my guest user upload a file. Everything works great in the debug, but as soon as I do it in production, the guest user cannot actually relate the object or relate the file.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, before I give you my my ideas on this, has anybody gone through this and have any suggestions on what the issue might be or how to address it? So my my initial thought here was that your screen flow, while you're building it and while you're debugging it, it's running as you, which you're probably a system administrator and you have access to like all the things. But when the flow is running through an Experience Cloud site, it's running as that guest user profile. And my guess is that that guest user profile doesn't have access to whatever the thing is that you need for it to have access to, right? So within Experience Cloud, if you go into security and you go to the guest user profile, did you confirm that that guest user profile has access to all the, either the object you're trying to connect it to or the files object, things like that?
I just had kind of an epiphany. It has access to the custom object and it has access to the file, but it does not have access to the document content junction object. So I bet that is it.
That could be it. So maybe take a look at that, and then if it's still not working, come back and we can take a look.
Cool.
Yeah, but I think that the biggest thing is whenever you're working on flows that are going to be used through, or not even flows, just anything that's going to be used through Experience Cloud, if it's working for you, but then it's not working in Experience Cloud, it's almost always a permissions issue with that guest user profile. Last week we had a similar thing where I forget who it was, but somebody was trying to build a portfolio, like their personal resume type site through Experience Cloud, and they were having issues with the images on their tiles not displaying. And it turns out that the guest user profile didn't have read access to the documents object, is where the where the images were being stored. So yeah, I'm thinking it might be something related to that.
Awesome. Thanks for letting me talk that through and giving me a little nudge in the right direction, hopefully.
Yeah,
Fingers
absolutely.
crossed.
All right, let us know if that works. Anybody have any final questions on this topic before we move to the next thing?
Can
All
I
right.
make a comment?
Yeah, go ahead, Amber.
Sorry. There is a setting too under the Salesforce files that you have to enable to allow site guest users to upload files. That was one thing too. I'm actually having a file issue as well, but can I ask a question about the same kind of concept, but not quite? Or is it better to wait?
Yeah, I think so. Reggie, you okay if we just, since we're on this topic, we'll one more question? Awesome. Yeah, go ahead, Amber.
I'm sorry, I didn't see the hand. I sucked
Yeah,
at this.
no worries.
I didn't know if somebody had the simplest workaround to set record types for files as they're uploaded without adding a object required field, without switching to classic.
So when a file is uploaded, you want to make sure that it gets some kind of default record type automatically?
Yeah. Well, we have a couple options, so they need to be able to select it.
Okay, so when they upload a file, you want them to be able to select which record type that they would like to use.
Yeah, while staying in Lightning.
Okay, and are you trying to do this through like a screen-based flow?
No, just through the standard. I haven't. I can I can work through a flow and that kind of stuff if that's where it has to go. I was just hoping if there was a simpler workaround that maybe a gotcha I was missing.
Anybody familiar with this? When you upload a file, setting a record type for a file? I don't think I've ever done that before. Let me tell you what, let me share my screen real quick. Just see, like I said, I don't think I've ever even done this. So if I was going to set up a record type on files, I would go here. I'm assuming there's like file. Where would I even set up record types on files?
Content version.
Content version. Okay, so let's go to record types and let's create a new record type. And this is where I check I'm not in a customer org. That's good. All right, so we'll call this, I don't know, file type A. Not very creative, sorry. We'll pull all these things in, I guess, make available. And next. Okay, what's this now? Apply one layout. Okay, so we're gonna use the same layout for both, that's fine. So we'll do save and new. And now we'll create a second record type. In this case, we'll do, I call it file type B. Okay, and I should go back and check to make sure that other one is active. So make available, next. Okay, save. Okay, so now I should have two record types. And when I go back here, looks like they're both active. We have two. Okay, so now that we have that, what you're saying is that if I were to go to like a project record, I think I have files on projects. Let's see. So, well, that's not very helpful, is it? Let's go back to opportunities, maybe. So if I were to go to an opportunity record, and I really dorked up my my layouts, huh? Let's go to accounts then. Let's see if I have files on accounts. Okay. So I guess it would be the notes and attachments here. It's actually a separate thing called files, right?
I think they end up linking generally the same, but
Okay, so if I upload new, picture me at Bike MS. Okay, so it doesn't actually prompt you. Is this the screen you're talking about where you like from here, you'd want to be prompted for which record type you want to use?
Yeah, if you have it set up with record types and one object level required field, then it'll say next instead of done. But this org is already built and it's huge. And so doing that would take probably like a month or more to find every single component and update them
Yeah.
to include that required field. So even a page level layout required field doesn't work. It has to be object level. And so now they're doing that and then switching to classic to edit all the information. And I was hoping to try to find a workaround that would be better.
Yeah, so they're actually uploading the file and then switching it to classic and then changing the record type from there.
Yeah, for every document they upload.
Is there any rule that you could apply that you might be able to use like a record triggered flow? Like if a file is uploaded on an account, set it to this record type, and if it's uploaded on a case, do this record type. Or when you upload it from like an account, for example, you might select one or more record or one or other record type on the account.
No, because they have multiple ones. Like it's a government model, and so it's inside one of the models. They're just on a participant record, and so they do multiple kinds.
Okay,
That's what
so
I was trying to do. I was like, oh.
yeah, so you wouldn't even be able to look at like a field on that record where you're doing the upload to say, okay, the field is set to this, then all the files are this type. Regardless as to what's on that record, you might be uploading many different record types to that same record.
Yeah.
Okay, so you really need it to be presented to the user then. Anybody have any thoughts on how you might accomplish that? Let's see, file. Let's see, Salesforce file, upload, record type.
It's okay. I can Google more on it later, but
Yeah.
Lindsay, you have yours. If you're in the Slack or anything, I'd love to meet up and chat about it if you want. If not, that's fine too. Sorry, thank you.
Yeah. Let me just see real quick. What is this record types? Lightning experience, you can customize the fields and layout of the files, detail page, use record types, customize. Okay, so just for my own curiosity here. Okay, so it is content version. So I'm curious. Let me share my screen again. So if we were to go to content version and go to page layouts, we have the content version page layout, which should apply to, you would think, every file that you're uploading. And yeah, I don't think that's the right field, but yeah, I kind of would expect to see record types here. Yeah, change record type. Okay, so now I'm wondering, okay, hold on, let's see here. So none of these are actually record type. So let's just save that for now. If I were to go back here and try to upload the same file of me at PikeMS. Okay, so at what point does it actually show you the page layout here? I guess is my question. Because I mean, in theory, I have, oh, that's a read-only field. Okay, all right, so I think I might have an idea here, but let's see if we can do this real quick. So I'm going to create a new field on the content version of type pick list. And let's just say file type. And we'll say type A, type B. Okay, so let's save that. So now we have a new pick list field on the content version. So then if I go to page layouts and we go to content version layout, I should now see file type, which is the editable one that I just created, and save. Now, again, having not really worked with layouts on files, is what you're telling me that from here, when I click new file to upload, I should see that drop down, or at least I should see a next button that should get me to that item.
Did you make it required?
I don't think I did.
It has to be object level required, not page layout. So you can try that, but it won't. At least mine didn't work because I have multiple page. So there's like 30 different or 40 different page layouts for
Okay.
So they each have their own, but they don't display until you can pick a record type, and you can't pick a record type unless there's the object level required. But so yeah, it should do that, and then instead of the done, it'll say next. So I'm not very good at explaining stuff. I'm trying.
Okay, so that didn't work there. Okay, so what you're saying then is if I go into file type, which is my pick list, and edit, I made this required. Yeah, files is one of those things I really don't work with that much. All right, so we got that. Now if I go back down here and upload another image. Okay, so now we have next. And we have file type that we can select in whatever other fields here. Oh, there's the record type. Okay, so now that I got this, if you make the field required, it brings you to the next option, and then you could select the record type. All that being said, what is the issue that you're having now? So you're saying that you have just too many page layouts. The fact that it's required means you have to go back and update historical data. Like, what was the actual issue now that I kind of see the screen here?
Well, so they do this over and over with different models and then different teams like within the model.
Mhm.
So it's just like a constant thing. And I personally don't like classic, so I don't want to switch back over to it. But I figured I would just try to help move it along quicker and use Lightning because it's new for this org. But
Yeah.
so they need to upload a file, pick a record type, and then pick a couple different fields inside of it, but it's only for a specific set of documents that they're uploading. They have multiple different documents that they do upload, so they can't just default to it. Like I can't set a default record type or anything like that.
Yeah.
And then I can't make an object level required one because there's at least 18 different current models that are using it, and 90% of this org is 100% custom. So it'd have to change every org component and class and trigger and everything else to make sure that it included the new required fields
Yeah.
to up anything. So it'd be huge. I was
Okay,
trying to
so
find a workaround.
Yeah, so I guess the biggest thing is there a way to make this screen show up without having to make a field required?
Yes. Sorry.
Yeah, so that's a good question. Yeah, you wouldn't think that you would have to do that, right? So if I unset that now, and just to make sure that we're getting like the up-to-date metadata, we'll do the comfy compact toggle here. Okay, and if we look at this now, because that field is not required, you're saying that I won't have the ability to select. So we'll do upload, select file. Yeah. Well, that's obnoxious, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. And it seems like it's been a constant thing since I found stuff back to like 2017
Yeah.
where they kind of talked about it, but yeah.
Yeah.
I just didn't know if somebody else had an easier way than, I feel like all I ever do is suggest screen flows or whatever. And so I don't want to be like that person, you know?
You don't be that guy. Yeah, no, I think that's the direction I was heading to, just with a screen flow, because then you could select the file and then you can put whatever logic in there that you would want to, when you click next, it would show the, certain field set versus, go different branch, it would, show something else. The only other thing that I might wonder about would be, so that was opportunity. So I wonder if we went to the opportunity, is there anything that we could do with Lightning actions here? So if I were to create a new action, is there like an upload a file version here or option? No. Well, create a record. Can I select file? No. Okay. Yeah. So I think the short answer is I have absolutely no idea why that next button wouldn't appear so that you can get to the layout every single time. Yeah, I would think that if I had to find a workaround, I would probably lean towards the screen flows option just because you have maximum control there. But yeah, I'm honestly not really sure on this one.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anybody else have any thoughts before we move on?
Yeah, we have something similar in our org, and it's a screen flow. Sorry.
So at least I know I tried and I even asked. So
But I was leaning in trying to see if Bill would figure this out. I'm like, it would be so much nicer if we didn't have a complex screen flow. But
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought it up.
Yeah, and I was just looking real quick too. I guess there's no, you don't have there's no concept of like editing a lightning page for content version. It's only the page layout. Because I started leaning towards, well, could we use dynamic forms or, dynamic fields, that kind of thing, and maybe that would force it to display each time. But yeah, I think the screen flow might be the option there.
Or just alphabetizing the record type so that it always comes up, to your primary one. Record types like to be in alphabetical order. If you can't default it, but at least it'll always show up first.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah. This one I'll probably lose sleep over this. So thank you for that, Amber. Well, I'm going to try to dork around this after the call, see if I can figure this out.
That's my
That's
goal,
going.
and I achieved it. Just kidding.
All right, Reggie, you've had your hand up for quite a while. What do you got?
Hey everyone. Forgive me, I know this question has probably been asked a lot in the group. I'm recently employed. I was a Salesforce administrator for about 6 years. Kind of just taught myself a bunch of things. And I recently started getting into Trailhead. I went from like 16 badges now up to almost 200 badges since June.
Nice.
And I'm starting to see that the more and more I do my research, that employers are looking to look at your Trailhead, look at your super badges to see if you have, a certain amount of super badges along with your Trailhead experience. They also equate kind of to your certifications. Is that kind of where the industry is going right now? I'm trying to make myself as marketable as possible. I saw a few videos where, as a Salesforce admin to really stand out, you pretty much need all the sales, service, advanced admin, platform app builder certifications to kind of stand out. And if you really want to stand out, get the developer one. So I'm working towards all of those. But any advice in regards to like Trailhead, super badges, and how the employers view all that?
Yeah, so I'll give you my take, and then we can open up for other folks on the call. I think when I think back to the earlier parts of my career where I might have been interviewing people for positions, I know there's a lot of emphasis on, college degrees and, experience. And if you didn't have either of those, then, what else could you, how else can you demonstrate your skills, right? Where I think now, when I'm hiring for positions now, yeah, I think Trailhead, not only the modules, but super badges, the projects, all the stuff that's on Trailhead now, even if somebody didn't have real world experience, the number one thing that I think Trailhead proves that a person can do is assimilate information, take a test. They're open to, like, they can learn new things and apply those skills, in the hands-on, test. So yeah, I think that's a big part of it. But yeah, let me ask, anybody else have any thoughts on that as far as potential employers and your kind of Trailhead activity?
Bill, I'll just throw this out there. I think Trailhead and super badges is pretty important for like entry level type positions, admin level, maybe BA. But I think that's less important, like the higher up the hierarchy you go.
Yeah, I think that's fair. So in other words, if I was trying to hire a intermediate to senior level developer, I probably wouldn't ever look at their Trailhead badges to prove that they know what they're doing with development work. In that case, you really need to have a little bit more than just Trailhead experience. Yeah, I think that's fair. Anybody else have any thoughts?
I would say do your portfolio and have your dev org, what you build in your dev org, and you're ready to show that.
Yeah, I think I think, Matt, the point you make about the beginner level stuff versus like the intermediate to advanced level stuff, I think that really is a great point. Because beginner, yes, like you're looking more towards, can people learn? Are they, trying to expose themselves to new information, like all that kind of stuff. Whereas on the intermediate side, you really need somebody that's coming to the table with not just like, I hate to use the term, but like book smarts versus like, You really do need that experience at that point. And how would you demonstrate that experience except to show what you might have done in previous positions? But then to Steve's point, another way that you might be able to demonstrate experience is by having your own, we call it a portfolio or like a dev org, but like somewhere where you've actually demonstrated the skills, albeit experience Claude in setting up the portfolio itself, a dev org where you've built some type of application that might be relevant to yourself or your hobbies or something like that. One thing like, if you're reading through, like if it's more on the developer side and you're reading through like one of these architecture type books, you can't even see it with, I never really figured out how to beat the algorithm for the fuzzy thing here. But in any case, yeah, you're reading through like an architecture type book, maybe having an org where you've built the solutions that they're discussing in the book and you can actually kind of explain it and, explain where you kind of veered off from what they described and you put your own kind of spin on things. I could see how that could be a way to demonstrate experience at that intermediate advanced level. Yeah. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, I've been helping out recently to interview intermediate level positions. And one of the things that we're looking for is for recency, right? So I interviewed people that worked on Salesforce 10 years ago, but they hadn't done any recent trails, recent certifications. So things were, they had a ton of experience, not necessarily in the areas we were looking for. So I think staying on the super badges and on the trails, that's something that we looked at right away. Not so much how much you post on LinkedIn, but just to ensure that you're active, you have activity.
Yeah. I don't know if this would ever get done, but if it ever does get done, you heard it here first, but I would love for Trailhead to have something where you have your badges you get, but over time they start to like wither away or like look rusty or, like fall apart. And the only way to get them back to like that pristine thing would be to take that same module again. Cause you're right. I mean, there's some trails that I took years ago and I never looked at them again. So it would be great if there was like some way that they would like start to crumble apart and eventually just like expire. Who's running Trailhead these days? Isn't it somebody from VetForce? I think now. Is it Ian? I have to look at that. I'll make that suggestion. It kind of fits into the whole gamification approach. So I think that's a way to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, Reggie. Go ahead, William. I'm sorry, cut you off there.
Oh, no, and I put all my focus into the BA to try to be more of a business advocate, more of a lead. A bunch of us here are military. So I try to put that forward as opposed to technical skills. So that's kind of, at least the company that I work for, what they're looking for in-house. And if anybody's in Florida, I posted where I work in Xterra because we have about a dozen positions opening, but they do want people in-house. So they do want people here for Salesforce roles.
Gotcha. Reggie, does that help at all? Going through all the items here?
All great answers. Thank you so much. Yeah, I have seen a couple posts where recruiters ask that the applicants have recent Trailhead badges that are continuously learning and looking at the different applications that are being added to Salesforce. I think that's being more and more what they're looking for. Just like you said, keeping your Salesforce badges current. But I think what you were talking about, William, I have background with business data analytics, project management, and then Salesforce admin. So I have a lot of experience with the Salesforce. When I lost my job, I didn't really know how to articulate that experience. You know what I mean? Because everything I learned from Google or Trailhead. Mostly Google, and the need for wanting to get something done for the company. And so when I started doing Trailhead and really studying for my exams, I was like, wow, okay, I really don't know how to articulate this stuff. So, now I'm a lot better, much better with everything, but it was a humbling experience.
Yeah, no, this group is great. I mean, office hours I think it's on Wednesday, Dave hosted a session where they brought in recruiters and we had to learn what the recruiters look for. So I just catered my entire approach to make it, make myself wanted. And that seemed to be the focus: lead, business analyst, communication. So it sounds like you have it. You just need to put it in a place where they'll be able to see it as well. But we can connect. I'm going to help you out. I'll post my LinkedIn here. we'll take
Yeah.
a look and get you there. Because I know what you went through. I know what you're going through. I was there a year ago.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, you got it, Reggie.
So I know I've told this story before, and I feel a little bit more lame every time I tell this story. But the very first Salesforce job that I ever interviewed for, and William, you mentioned the military background, but I tried to equate my training as a field artillery forward observer with communicating between infantry and the field artillery to the Salesforce role, being able to discuss from a technology side to the sales side. I got the job. I don't know if that had anything to do with it, but I always thought that was interesting, like trying to equate the military experience to like, you know, sales and Salesforce and technology. I don't know. So yeah.
You hear that, Larry? Hooah!
So yeah, I don't know.
Every day, all day, infantry. I love it.
Well, I was more on the field artillery side, so yeah, I'm not going to make any jokes or snide comments about it, but no, that's yeah. So Reggie, I hope that helps, and I just want to underline one of the comments that was mentioned there about the other sessions of Military Trailblazer office hours. So our Friday session is just one of them. This is our open Q&A. But if you haven't attended David's Wednesday session or looked at any of his YouTube videos from past sessions, I would definitely urge you to do that as well. And then since we're on the topic, besides our Friday open Q&A and our Wednesday career branding sessions, we also have our Trailhead Tuesday that Jade runs. And then we have our off the record chatter that there's a whole team that runs that on Mondays as well. And we'll have a developer session coming on Thursdays in the near future as well. So yeah. All right. Well, I hope that was helpful.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.
Yeah. All right. Greg, I saw you have a hand up. What do you got?
We've been interviewing for Salesforce developers, and the one thing that turns me off is when somebody gives me a resume and it's got every verb of Salesforce on their resume. I know workflow rules, I know this, I know that. And what I'm looking for is accomplishments. What have you done? Because I get people with limited experience. They have PD1 certifications and everything, but they don't really state what they've done or accomplished. So just because I get the page just all flooded with verbs of Salesforce, and it flows, workflow rules, process builder, it tells me nothing. So put some actions in your resumes without a lot of detail, but just say created a flow to do this and that. Show me that you've done something rather than saying workflow rules and validation rules, blah blah blah.
Yeah. So in other words, put a little bit more detail as far as what you've done and make it look less like the index to a Salesforce admin study guide, like just not buzzwords, but more detail about what you've done with those things. Yeah.
Well, I would have like my portfolio. That's a perfect example. I just did like a 32-page PDF of showing everything I did in that click flow experience. And it goes and shows you like business process diagrams, the properties of the flow, the logic that I went through on the flow. So once I get that portfolio, which I haven't done, it'll be right there on the right side of the resume. And you click to the portfolio, like you can look and see your LinkedIn and your Trailhead right now. So I'm gonna add that portfolio. And then in that portfolio, you'll be able to see that PDF and just click right through it. So I'm marketing myself. I won't have to, let's say, those verbs he just said. They can actually see what I did.
Yeah.
So Steve, so you basically, like all the flows that you did, you're taking snapshots of those, of the kind of the process and everything, and then you're adding a description on why you created a flow and what the flow is doing. Is that what you're saying?
I did, and put a PDF document, and I've also, when I presented like 4 times. I went back and recorded my presentation in full if they wanted to see that. I don't know if they wanted to see that, but that would be where I was talking to the coach and they would actually see me presenting what I did.
That's awesome. And this is the first time I've heard about creating a personal portfolio on Silver. I just looked at the trail, so thank you guys for that tip. that's going to be definitely helpful.
Yeah. And has somebody posted that into the chat here with that personal portfolio trailhead module? All right, I don't see it there, so I'm going to try to find that real quick. Or if anybody has it handy, if you could post it there in the chat. There you go. Thank you very much, Reggie. Yeah. Yeah, the portfolio thing and having a dev org where you're kind of building stuff out, or putting different pages about your experience and what you did and the diagrams, and kind of explain your logic. I really do honestly feel like if I received a resume, to your point, that had just a list of items on there, buzzwords, versus somebody giving me the link to their personal portfolio, that when it says, the front page is like their resume, so to speak, and it says I have flow experience, and that was a link, and I clicked on that, and it brought me to a page that showed what type of things they've done, their thought process, how they kind of broke it out, why they went this route versus the other route. I think that is much more compelling. Obviously you probably get to that if you're interviewing somebody anyway, but if I receive that right up front, before I even got to the interview, and I'm seeing like kind of how they think, I would think that would be pretty compelling. I like that idea. So, okay. Anybody have any other thoughts on this before we move on? All right, Jonathan, I see you have a hand up.
Yeah, had a question about how to optimize a formula to find. So basically the use case is that client wants to populate a field with a sum of values from child records, but those child records must be from the prior month. So for in July, they want to see the total from one numerical field from the child records, but only the child records that have a date stamp of June.
Yeah.
So I think I figured it out, but I'm using a flow, but I had to develop like 3 separate formulas in the flow to come up with the date range.
Yeah.
So I didn't know if there was maybe I can show you what I built, but I feel like I'm looking at this like, man, there's got to be a smarter way to do this.
Well, let me ask you a question before you share, just to kind of confirm what you're looking to do here. So you need, let's just you have let's just say you have an account object and you have a project object, and or maybe cases would be a better use case here. So you have an account and you have the related cases, and you want to have on the account a field that says like total time worked on cases from last month. And no matter where you are in the calendar year, it's looking at the previous month. So for example, if we're here on the 21st of July, it's going to show you the total for all the case hours that were spent in June, right?
Right.
Okay,
Right.
Now, as far as the mechanism to do that roll-up, are you going with flows or using any other kind of tool like DLRS or roll-up helper?
I defaulted right to a flow, but I should have thought about. I know we talked about DLRS the other week. Didn't even cross my mind when I was doing this the other day. So that's also an intriguing thought.
Well, whether you go DLRS or you try to kind of roll your own with a flow, I think either way, you're still going to have to identify which records are from last month. So creating a formula field that would say is last month, and it's going to be true if it was last month, or it's going to be false if it's this month. I think that's still a pretty important thing. So I could jump in, kind of show you how I would do this, or if you want to share your screen and kind of show us where the approach you took, then we'll go from there. Either way.
What if it's okay? I'll default to letting you run with it because like I said, I figured it out, but it's a mess. So I think maybe if we learn from the right way, potentially that might be better for everybody.
I don't know if it's the right way. I honestly have no idea how I would do this until I share my screen and we jump in there and start just throwing stuff together. Before I do that, though, anybody have any thoughts about how they've accomplished this in the past? Essentially, a Boolean or a checkbox formula field that would indicate whether something is from last month or this month. Okay, so like I said, I think it's important to understand that even if you've been doing this for 10 years, sometimes you have no idea until you start getting in there and doing it, right? So let's do this. So if I were to go into, let's just say we go to the case object, and based on the case open date, I want to be able to identify whether or not this case was opened. Actually, opened is probably a bad one. All right, let's just create a field because I don't want to do a case open because then it kind of limits how we can test this thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a date field, and then we'll use that date field as our thing here. So let's go to the case object. And let's do that first. So let's create a date field called some date. All right, so date and some date. All right, so that'll be the field. Oh, do I have oh, that's right. I have this whole permission set thing. Let's hope that I'm assigned in one of these permission sets. Yeah, we talked about that at the end of our last call. Okay, so we got a date field now, and now let's create a new formula field called is last month. Okay, and this is going to be of type checkbox. And then this is the part where I have no idea. So let's kind of think how we would do this. How would we know if something is last month? It would basically have to be, well, let's see what functions we have first of all. Let's go to our datetime functions. So we have date. We have, well, this one's kind of compelling, add months. So we can think about that. If we go through here.
So there is a month. You could do month of the new date field you just created.
The only thing I don't like about that is that then you have to worry about, well, is it last month or was it June of last year? So you got things like that that you have to be concerned with. So here's how I would kind of tackle this. First of all, I'm going to insert our date field on here, our some date, just so we have that available. And then I would think that we want to take whatever the date that we're trying to figure out is the last month, and we want to convert that to just the first of the month. So I might say we're going to create a new date, which is going to be date. And then the date formula that we have here, you got to pass in a year, the month, and the day. All right. So in that case, I'm going to grab the year from our date field. So we want to make sure it's the current year. We're going to grab the month from the some date field. And then we're going to grab, we're not going to grab the day. We're just going to set it to be the first. All right. So that would give me the first of the month from whatever the date field is. So if, for example, if some date was today's date, it would actually, this, what we just put in here would actually equate to the 1st of July. All right. Now, because we want the last month, I think then what I might do is do add months. And then let's see, what do we need for add months here? You got to pass in a date, which is this thing that we just did. And then to get last month, I'm going to pass in a -1. So in theory, that should give me the 1st of last month. All right. Now, that being said, all right, how would we do this then? That's going to give me the 1st of last month. So in theory, if well, yeah, now we have to compare this to today's date, right? So I think what I'm going to do is this is actually going to be today, not the date itself, but this is going to be today. So that gives me the 1st of last month. And now I need to say, is the date that we want greater than that date? So it's going to be, is my date, so the some date greater than the 1st of last month, and so we'll just use these ends right now. So and then we're going to pull this back, and now we need to get the last day of last month. So that one's actually a lot easier. So I'm going to grab the same exact formula that we did here, and instead of doing add months, we're going to get rid of that function. So again, this gives me the 1st of this month. So that's it right there, right? So this one's going to be greater than or equal to the 1st of last month. And then this one be the some date is less than the 1st of the current month. Can it really be that easy? Let's see. What am I missing here? Missing a parenthesis. So we have add months. That's my today. That's my year. And then, yeah, I think I'm missing the date piece here. Let's see. No, I think I'm messing that up. So, okay, so I'm definitely missing a parenthesis here, and this is like the age-old question about how do you identify where you're missing your parentheses. So let's do this. We have our date. That's the closing for the year. We have a comma. That's the closing for the month. Okay, so I think that's what my issue was. And I think the same thing right here. Huh. Okay. So that looks like it's, I mean, syntactically correct. I don't know if, like, based on our logic, is to be determined if this is right.
Does
So-
does that account for the December, January scenario?
Yeah, it does. That's why we use the add months thing versus
Yeah.
just using the month straight up. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so let's save this, and then before we actually test it, I want to make sure that we have whatever permission set that was, again, because last week I think the last thing that we did was switch our view from adding it directly to a profile to adding it to a permission set. So let's just make sure our test user has this permission set assigned. If we do, then we should be able to test by just setting that some date and seeing if it works. So let's add me. Test McDummy record, whatever that was. Okay, so over here now on our case, if I refresh here, we should see our two fields that we just added. Some date should be blank, and then is last month is false. Okay, so now if I set this to sometime in the middle of last month, my hope is that when we save this, that should then be true. Okay, there we go. And then if we change this to the previous month, it should go back to false. If we change this to this month, it should be false. And just to do some edge testing here, so if we go and we set it to June 1st, that greater than or equals to should kick in, and that should be true. And if we set it to the last day of the month, less than the first of this month, that should still be true. Yeah, so I think that would give you basically a Boolean field or a checkbox field to say, is this date, whatever the date that you choose to put into the formula, is it sometime last month? And then how you would do the rollup then, you could just query based on that field. So, you do a scheduled triggered flow, find me all of the case records, project records, whatever it is, where is last month equals true, loop through them, do your adding and then set the field. Or in the case of DLRS, you could do the same thing where you have, you're doing a roll up based on the lookup relationship, and you're just grabbing as part of your criteria where is last month equals true. And again, that's a scheduled flow that would run nightly or whatever it is. But yeah, so let me do this. Let me go back to that field. I'll throw that into the chat and I'll throw it into Slack, and hopefully that'll help you.
I think I was trying to do all of it just within the flow itself without creating a field on the object. So I think that's part of the reason why it was so much more complicated.
Well, I think that's absolutely doable. For me though, anytime I'm trying to schedule like some kind of scheduled flow that's going to either update a lot of records or do something like bulk operation, I would much rather be able to see what that formula is going to equate to and be able to look at it on a report or a list view to say, okay, these are the records that when the flow does run, these are the ones it's going to pick up. That always seems safer to me than trying to test it with, whatever logic you build into the flow, but not really being able to see what the results are going to be before you click go, And there's ways around that, I'm sure. But yeah, I think the field is always the easiest way for me to kind of visualize it. But here, I'll throw this into the chat, and then also throw this into our open Q&A channel within our Slack. So field to find last month. Okay, so I think we're a little bit over our time. I appreciate everybody joining. If we didn't get to a question that you had, definitely post it into the Slack workspace in our open Q&A channel. But otherwise, I just want to thank everybody for joining. Hope everybody has a great weekend, and hopefully we can all connect next week. So thank you all.